Hello students, today's agenda is to check homework. We'll be graphing parabolas and you will be able to work on 10.4. Today students will be able to graph parabolas by finding the vertex first. Okay, so before we start, let me tell you that sometimes you're going to have the formula for parabolas in this way, or sometimes it'll be in this form. The only difference is that in here, y is isolated. So basically, you have y minus k equals a times, between parentheses, you have x minus h squared. But then in here, you have plus k. So this, what you're subtracting in here, you cancel by adding k. This cancels, and you have plus k in here. So basically it's the same thing, but the k is here negative, and then it goes to the other side positive. So the vertex, I just put a sign in here as negative, but basically it means that if you get it from here, okay, you're gonna do the opposite of whatever is in here. So if it's -4, you're gonna put +4. If it's -3, you're going to put +3. In here, if you have -2, in here it will be +2. If you have +5, you have -5. So basically just change the sign if it comes from the original. If it comes from this one, you change it for h, but then you keep the sign of this one. Okay, so we'll do some examples so that it makes more sense. So basically you don't even need to have those signs in there. Okay, you just get the value of h, meaning the opposite of here. The value of k when it's with y is the opposite of whatever is in here. So let's look at the first one. And so you have y minus 3 equals x plus 2 square. Let me zoom it a little bit. And so what we're going to be doing is creating a table. And we're going to put 5 rows. The vertex, as I mentioned before, there is a number next to y, so you do the opposites of both. Okay, so in here, if it's +2, the opposite is -2, and that's for the vertex, which we're going to always place in the middle to make it easier for us. And here, if it's -3, it becomes +3. Now let's put it in the second form of the equation. What it means is that if you're subtracting 3, the opposite is to add 3. That cancels, and so your new equation is y equals, notice how y is by itself now, x plus 2 squared plus 3. Okay, it came from canceling that. Notice how if we have it in this form, if y is by itself, the x, we get the opposite, but for y, we keep it the same way it is. And I don't know if you recall from previous lessons that the numbers that are outside is for y, and it always goes up if it's positive, down if it's negative. But then when it was inside of the parentheses, it would go in the opposite direction. If it's positive, it will go to the left, not to the right. It would go to the left. And if it was negative, it will go to the right. Okay, I don't know if you recall that. If not, that's okay. Just remember that inside the parentheses, the opposite. And then in here, it goes with the sign. Okay, having now the vertex, that's going to be our first point. Look at for that vertex, I want you to look at the value of x, which is -2 right there. To figure out these numbers for x, we're going to choose 2 to the left, meaning -3 and -4. And then we're going to do from the vertex, we're gonna also do 2, but to the right, so it's -1 and 0. So -1 and 0. And from there, we're gonna start finding the value. We're gonna use this form of the equations. It's gonna be y equals, the value of x is -4 plus 3, everything squared plus 3. -4 plus 2 is -2 square plus 3. -2 squared means -2 times -2. Since it's negative times negative, it's +4 plus 3, and 4 plus 3 is 7. So that's the first value. I'm going to use a different color for the next one so that they don't get confused. So now the value of x is -3 plus 2 square plus 3. -3 plus 2 is -1 square plus 3. -1 square is +1 plus 3 gives me 1 plus 3, 4. So that's the next value. Since we don't need to do this one because we already have the value for y, we go to the next one. And so you have y equals -1 plus 2 square plus 3. Okay, all I'm doing is replacing in each one with the value of x. And so -1 plus 2 is 1 square. You can put or not the parentheses since it's positive, it's okay. And then plus 3. 1 times 1 is 1, plus 3 equals 4. So that's the value. Notice how we got the same for these two. The next one is y equals, the value of x is 0, so I replace it here. So it's 0 plus 2 square plus 3 equals, 0 plus 2 is 2 square plus 3. 2 square means 2 times 2 is 4 plus 3 gives me 7. Okay, I know I'm going a little fast, but once you replace it, it's just simplifying each part. Notice how this is the same as this right here, 7 and 7. And it's because it's a parabola. A parabola will always be symmetrical. Okay, so you can graph any point from here. Just make sure that you don't skip any. So -4, 7 is -4, 7. Right here. -3, 4. -3, +4. Right there. The vertex, right? This is my vertex. That should be the bottom of the the top of the mountain or the bottom of the valley. -2, +3. -1, 4. -1, 4. And 0, 7. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 0 to the left or right and 7 up. And the vertex is always the global minima or global maxima depending on where it is. And that's it. Okay, let's do another one. Remember that you can always go back to it. Okay, so this one is already in y equals 2 times x minus h squared. And then plus k means that it doesn't have anything in here and it doesn't have anything in here. So my vertex, it's actually x, y. Let me do this and whoops, I did one extra, that's fine. So I'm going to put my vertex here. The vertex, remember that is the opposite. For x is the opposite. So if it's -1, is +1. And since there is nothing for adding here or subtracting or adding to the y, it's just going to be 0. Okay? And so, since the equation is already in the way, we can just substitute x and start simplifying because we don't need to cancel anything with y, from y. So we're going to start, this is my vertex. we need 2 to the left, which is 0 and -1. And to the right is 2 and 3. And so we start substituting. So y equals 2 times the value of x minus 1 all square. Remember that PEMDAS told me that I have to do whatever is inside of the parentheses first, and then the exponent, and then multiplication and division, whichever comes first, and addition and subtraction, whichever comes first. So in here, I bring the 2, I bring the square, but then I do the parentheses, which is -1 minus 1 is -2. It's like adding negatives. And then the second part is exponents. So I have to do this part first, okay? This section first before I do the multiplication. So it's going to be 2 times -2 times -2 is +4, which gives me 8. Okay, that's my answer for this one. 2 times 4, 8. For the next one, y is equals to 2 times 0 minus 1 square, which is 2 times 0 minus 1 is -1 square. According to PEMDAS, I have to do the exponent first. And so I bring the 2. -1 times -1 is +1. And 2 times 1 is 2. And sorry, I'm changing numbers and colors here so that I don't get confused, these two, but then I keep writing, which is okay, it doesn't matter. The next one is y equals, maybe I should use the blue since those are the two colors, the two that are the same, or should be the same. In here, we're going to have 2 times the value of x, which is 2 minus 1 square equals, I bring the 2, 2 minus 1 is 1 square. I do the parentheses first. I mean the exponents first, and so it's 2 times 1 times 1 is 1, and 2 times 1 is 2. Notice how these are the same. And the last one is y equals 2 times 3 minus 1 square equals 2 times 3 minus 1 is 2 square. 2 times 4, because 2 times 2 is 4. And then 2 times 4 gives me 8. So now I have enough. I have the points. And notice how also these are the same. Okay? Again, this is because they are symmetrical. So -1, 8. -1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right here. 0, 2, 0, 2, 1, 0, 1, 0, 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then 3, 8, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that's my parabola. Right there. Okay. Oops. Oh, I guess you didn't see -1, 8 is -1, and then you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Okay, let's do number 3. This one has fractions. Yay! So let me find the vertex before I do the cancellation so that, and I think I'm going to leave more space in here so that you can see what to do with the fractions. And so for the vertex is the opposite of x because it's like right there, and opposite of y because it's on that side of the equal sign, so -3. And so in here, if I have -1, I'm going to use -2 and -3. And over here, I'm going to use 0 and 1. And for my equation, remember that I'm going to subtract 3, cancel it from here to leave y alone. So it's y equals 1/4 x plus 1, everything square, minus 3. Okay, and so I start y equals 1/4 of negative 3 plus 1 square minus 3. 1/4 times, I owe 3, I pay 1, then I'm going to owe only 2 square minus 3. Or as they say, different signs, we subtract. 3 minus 1 is 2, and leave the sign of the greater 1. Okay, so this is going to give me 1/4 times negative 2 times negative 2, because of the exponent here. It's going to be positive 4 minus 3. Now we're going to do this multiplication, but I'm going to show you on the side what to do. We can just say, how much is 1/4 of 4, which is 1. The other way of finding it is 1/4 times 4. We put it over 1, multiply straight, and so 1 times 4 is 4. 4 times 1 is 4, and 4 divided by 4 is 1. So that's the total from there. Minus 3 is like having $1 but then owing $3. You get negative 2. Or the other way of seeing it is different signs. We subtract and leave the sign of the greater 1. So 3 minus 1 is 2, and the greater 1 is negative. The next one is y equals 1/4 times x, which is negative 2, plus 1 minus 3. Oh, I'm missing the square. 1/4 negative 2 plus 1. Different signs, we subtract and leave the sign of the greater 1, which is, we subtract 2 minus 1 is 1, and the greater sign is negative. Carry the minus 3 equals negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1, so 1/4 times positive 1 minus 3. What is 1/4 of 1? Well, it's going to be 1/4. If we put it over 1 and multiply it straight, is 1/4, which is 0.25 or a quarter, minus $3. That means you have a quarter, but then you owe $3, so that means that you still owe $2.75 minus 2.75. Okay. In here, we're going to have y equals 1/4, x is 0, plus 1 square minus 3. 1/4 times 0 plus 1 is 1 square minus 3. 1/4 times 1 times 1 is 1 minus 3. And 1/4 times 1 is, again, you can just call it 0.25 or 1/4. It doesn't matter, minus 3. So 1/4 is just 0.25, or 1/4 minus $3 is going to be negative 2.75. Or if you want to see it as a fraction, it's negative 2 and 3/4. Okay, this is the same. So negative 2.75. The last one is y equals 1/4 times the value of x is 1 plus 1 square minus 3. 1/4. 1 plus 1 is 2 square minus 3. 1/4. 2 square, remember that exponents are done before the multiplication, so 2 times 2 is 4, minus 3. 4 times 1/4, we already noticed that it's 1, minus 3, which is equals to negative 2. So notice how these two are the same and these two are the same. And we're ready to graph. So -3, -2, -3, -2 right here. The next one is -2, -2.75. Sorry. So -2, -2.75. So it's almost 3. It's like $2.75. The next one is -1, -3. So -1, -3. 0, 2.75. 0, 2.75. And 1, 2. 1, +1, -2. +1, -2. And so that's how you open your parabola. And if you want to know where the next points go, you can actually do more values here and here. One to the left and one to the right. Okay, let me show you one more with the fraction so that you can practice that. And notice on this one how we do have the k on the other side. Okay, I want you to see that the y doesn't have anything in here. It's the constant over here. So that means that we are not going to change. For the vertex, we get the opposite of x, so it's -2. So in here it's going to be +2. But for y, we're just going to keep the same sign because it's on this side. Okay? Notice how in here, if we take it from here, we get the opposite. So if it's positive, for the vertex is -3. But notice how if it's on this side, okay, in here we can take the opposite for y, but if it's on this side, it's the same. Okay, when y is by itself, this is the same sign for y, only for y. But in here, when it comes from here, it's the opposite. If it's right next to y. So same here. For this one, we're just going to keep it with the same sign. If it had been here, that means that it was canceled and it was negative before. Okay, that's why now it's positive. Okay, so now since we have y equals 1/2 times x minus 2, everything squared plus 4, that's what we're going to be using. Remember, if this is the vertex, we're going to use to the left 2 of them and to the right 2 of them. So 1, 0, and 3, 4. So y is equals to 1/2 times 0 minus 2 squared plus 4. And this is 1/2 times 0 minus 2 is -2 squared plus 4. And that gives me 1/2. -2 times -2 becomes +4 plus 4. And we already know from previous, oh, sorry, no. This is 1/2. 1/2 of 4 is 2 plus 4. That gives me 6. This is 1/2, not 1/4. Lo siento, I'm sorry. So the next one is y equals 1/2 times 1 minus 2 squared plus 4. 1/2 times 1 minus 2 is -1 squared plus 4. And that gives me 1/2. -1 times -1 is 1 plus 4. And that 1 times 1/2 is just 1 time that. So it's 1/2 plus 4. So it's going to be 4 and 1/2. Or 4.5 also if you want to see it that way. 4.5 if you prefer to graph decimals. For the next one, it's going to be y equals 1/2 times 3 minus 2 squared plus 4. 1/2 times 3 minus 2 is 1 squared plus 4. And so that gives me 1/2. This is 1 times 1 plus 4. And 1/2 times 1 is 1/2 plus 4 is 4 1/2. or 4.5. Either one is fine, okay? And the last one, y is equals to 1/2 times 4 minus 2 squared plus 4, 1/2 times 2 squared plus 4, and that's 1/2 times 2 times 2 is 4 plus 4. 1/2 times 4 is 2, meaning half of 4 is 2 plus 4 gives me 6. Notice how again these are the same and these are the same. And we're able to graph now. So 0, 6 is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1 and 4.5, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and half of the next one. The vertex is 2, 4, so 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And 3 and 4.5, so 3, 4.5, and 4, 6. 4, 6, so there you have it. Oops. And with this, you're able to do 10.4 and have fun.